Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a comic episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's pouring one out with me tonight?
Hey, everybody. It's Kenneth, Sanity, and we are gathered here today to mourn the passing of a good man. A flawed man, but an all right man. He's all right.
Families both rule and suck.
That's what Shiggy said in this book. So we are here, finally, to pay our respects to Sandman, The Wake, the last volume, technically, of this original run.
Last volume of the story proper.
Yes,
There's other things.
There's a lot of other things.
And we're not worried about that right now.
No, we are just here to talk about The Wake, which is issues 70 through 75.
Man, it's kind of hard to believe we've been through all of these so far.
Yeah. You've been on everything but the first one.
But the first one, yeah.
And Chris was on everything but the first one, and I think the third one. And then, yeah, you guys have been with me ever since.
Been a long journey, and I'm glad we've made it.
4 or 5 years. Sandman 1, I think, is the first year, or maybe not the first year of this podcast, but it was pretty early. And it just kept going. So,
dang.
Finally at the end. And I really appreciated this book more than the last one. October 18, 2019 is when the first one was published.
Wow.
So this will be published in late September or late August, I think. Late August or July or August, one of those times. I don't remember what I have in my notes. So yeah, if this will be, this is August, early August. So yeah, this will be almost 4 years on the date. So that's impressive.
Dang.
This issue, I first want to say the art is so good in this issue. It's in this whole book. It's different than what we just came from, and I really, really like this art.
It's somber. Like, the colors are muted. It's a world that has less life in it, and I think that's really thematically on point. Like, Daniel Vazzo did the coloring on this, and it's just so good. Like, they're bright colors, but they don't have all of the saturation that they normally would in a comic book. And I think that works really well for the fact that we're attending a funeral, basically.
And this is Michael Zulli, right? Who's been like Sandman artist in previous stuff.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, he's come to play too. Like, the art is just fantastic in this book.
It was nice. I needed good art after the kindly ones. I mean, it wasn't bad art. It just wasn't. I like this art style. Kindly ones was very, I think, exaggerated art. Maybe that's the right word.
Yeah, it was wild art, but it was telling a wild story.
Yes.
So, like, the art worked for that book. But, I get it. It wasn't everybody's cup of tea. Depending on the day, I'd be kind of yay or nay on it. But I think we can all agree this art sharp.
Yes.
Yeah. And Michael Zulli, his first Sandman issue is appropriate because it was issue 13, which is the Hobgoblin issue.
Yes. Hob.
We will talk about Hob later.
Yeah,
Yes.
I kind of think that should have been the last issue. Instead, it's 2 from the last issue.
Yeah.
The last issue works, though, too. Like, we'll talk about it.
The last issue was fucking long, but yes, we will talk about that. But the first issue of this, when you see that all the family of the Endless getting letters with the and they're all getting it from their type of animal familiar. One's parakeet, a bat, an eagle. Like, it's so good. What is it for Delirium? Doesn't show.
Let's see what it is.
Yeah, it doesn't show what Delirium.
I'm pretty sure Delirium already knew.
Yeah.
Like,
Death
she already
too.
knew it was coming back.
I mean, Death was there.
Yeah.
God, I love Death in this. I love that
Barnabas.
character so much. I'm so happy about that Funko Pop when we were recording one. That Funko Pop went up in price, by the way, since the time I bought it.
Of course it did. Of course it did. It's just plastic. Why wouldn't it?
Yes, I know. And we get to see your buddies again, Ken. The ones that were in the short story of The World's End that were doing the funeral people.
Yeah.
You get to see that whatever they are when the whole family comes to them to be like, we are ready to bury our brother.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see them again.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, it's just, and the way that the first thing that you see the family do is create an envoy to go inside to do the funeral. And like, again, that's kind of interesting too. Like within death, there's creation. I feel like that's what he was trying to go for.
I do love, Barnabas helping out. He's got a stick in his mouth as they're making this, a homunculus or however you say it, that he's pitching into by just having a stick.
It's cute little things like that.
He's a good boy.
It's good to have him back. I do have a lot of questions that are going to come up, though, as we keep going in this that I need you guys to answer for me. Because I didn't.
Of course.
Okay.
There'll be a few. We'll get there. But so I always appreciate seeing his helmet. Because you see when they go inside the mausoleum after death gives him life. I think they all each give him life. They all each touch him. Oh, they each touch him to give him life.
Yeah, they basically have to make a homunculus to go inside because the family can't go inside and get the crements of death, or the cerements of death, rather. And since the Endless can't go in, somebody has to. So they basically make a golem. And parts of the Endless are all within the golem. So it's great. And he gets the best name in the world. Eblis O'Shaughnessy, that's my boy.
It is cute that's what Delirium names him. That Delirium is the one that names him. I did like that. Delirium is really growing on me throughout these books. She's a great character.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, there are characters I like more.
Yeah.
But, Desire.
Yeah, it is interesting. In the trade paperback version I read, Gaiman's like, I would do a Delirium series. I'm like, well, I don't think you ever do. So.
Yeah.
Nope.
Well, you never know. The future is wide.
Yeah, they could team up with Batman. That would sell some comics.
Yeah.
I mean, it would.
It would. Batman's going to show up, I guess, in the next issue, so we'll get to him.
Okay, that was Batman? All right. I was pretty sure.
Yeah.
This is a different, which I don't know how I feel about that.
That's next issue. But yeah, so he goes and collects the little mask thingy that Dream has and like some grave clothes type things.
It's basically the burial shroud and the books for the ceremony.
I didn't realize because I reread most of this book twice. It wasn't until I was rereading it that I realized who he was at different points. That Shaughnessy, the guy, the golem that they create, was then like the priest that's walking with them. I did not put two and two together at first.
Yeah, becomes part of the ceremony,
which I like. I thought it worked well the way they do it and the way that he explains things. I liked it. And and then the next part you see Sandman, but not Morpheus Sandman. Just the way that I don't know. This art is so fucking good here. When the first time you see him in this book, like I really like it.
Yeah, you got Daniel just being a pimp. Like he's got that nice dreaming drip. He is just decked out like a white party on Labor Day. Like it is a good look, especially when Morpheus was so dark all the time. So to have Daniel just be white and light, like,
oh yeah,
you're just like, wait, what? Hold on, what?
It fits though. It fits what they're going for. And like one comment they make throughout this about these issues is that he is the Endless. Like he is he might not be Morpheus, but he still is the Sandman.
Yeah, he's Dream.
Yeah,
it's really good how they do it too. I was impressed.
It's kind of like Davy Jones from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. The Dutchman always needs a captain.
Oh yeah,
and there always has to be a dream.
But at the same time, they talk about, I think it might be in this issue, but they talk about it at some point about how like there used to be a different despair, but it's the same person now. Like it doesn't matter.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff like that.
Yeah, and like it's change. Just like the death card in any tarot spread isn't literal death usually, it's change. And that's what this is. It's still the same. It's still dream, but it's a different dream.
Right.
But somehow also the same dream, who still remembers and knows things that the previous one did, but isn't Morpheus.
It's not. And they tell you that multiple times throughout this. But it's just really interesting how they do it. And then this is when he brings Abel back to life.
Which is heartwarming.
It is.
Yeah.
Because Kane is just like, I need him back. My contract says I have to have my brother and blah, blah, blah. And you can tell Kane is really upset. He wants Abel back.
They did a good job of it, though. It definitely makes you feel for him. A
Mhm.
character that I really don't care about usually. So
Yeah. And then he describes him in a way where he's like, yeah, he's an idiot who sucks and he smells bad, but can you please bring him back to life?
yeah, it's still cute. Still working
And
well.
this afterwards is the first time, you get Kane saying that Lord Morpheus brought you back right as rain, and Daniel saying, not Morpheus, I have no right to that name. I am dream of the endless. It is enough. That line goes so hard.
I like it.
Like, that is good. First off, to say you have no right to the name Morpheus, that's badass. But then to say your dream of the endless, it's enough. Man.
Right. And
Such a good line.
it ties it to, like Morpheus and Orpheus and all of that the Morpheus that we know is the dream character that's in all of these mythologies. But he's like, this isn't me. I'm not that guy from all these mythologies, but I am Dream of the Endless. So he has, he has all this power, but he's not just like, oh, I'm the same as, he knows what happened, but it's like reading it in a book versus actually experiencing it.
That's fair. That's a good way to put it.
And he's still coming into himself because he was just a child.
Yeah.
Which they talk about in this multiple times.
Yes.
They make a lot of comments about him being that he was just a child.
But, you got to grow up quick in eternity.
Well, I take it as time also probably passes differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if time passes. I don't know if time is a thing.
Yeah,
Time.
we see in issue 74 that you can sort of go, it can be kind of loose.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, time is a human construct. Like we made time
Fair.
because we needed something to measure how long it took for the sun to come up and then go back down.
Yeah.
And that's where all of our perception of time comes from. Did not expect to go down this path, but
So I have a question. So first you see this lady in a cave. Is this a character I should know that Matthew's talking to?
Who is that?
I didn't recognize
I'm sure
her.
it's someone.
she's shown up in the past.
Okay, I didn't know who she was. I recognized a lot of these characters, but that was one that I wasn't sure of. So I was just curious if it was somebody that you guys knew.
Yeah.
not-
I'm sure it's someone, but I don't know off the top of my head who it is.
Okay. And then when you start having everybody fall asleep and you have little panels of you being introduced to other characters, you have Nuala, Rose, Richard. Was Richard one of the... No, that's Hobb. No, that's not Hobb. Hobb's
No,
later.
it's Richard Madoc. He was the guy who was holding Calliope as the muse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember who he was. Okay. And then you have two pages of almost no dialogue where you have Sandman bringing back the Jack-o'-lantern guy.
Yep.
I forgot his name.
My dude.
That's just so cool that they did this with no words. It just shows him planting the pumpkin, getting the scarecrow, just to bring him back. It's so good.
Good old Merv. Mervyn Pumpkinhead, the baller, who went out guns blazing, cigar lit.
And yeah, the smoke coming out of his eye hole as he's smoking the cigar when he comes back. Like, what are you looking at?
And it's great because you also see the Corinthian just there.
I did not expect him to be such a big part after Dollhouse ended, like that he came back. That still kind of surprises me.
Yeah.
Well, he is the nightmare.
Yeah. And you have Lita falling asleep. You have Alexander Burgess. That was a guy that was involved with kidnapping Dream in the first arc, right?
Yes, that was the son of the original guy who did it.
Okay.
He's the lover of the guy who's taking care of the house that Rose talked to.
Yes.
Okay. And then you also have Hobb falling asleep. Just all little good panels that the way they do this. And then they mix it with people falling asleep and entering the dream with what Dream is doing. Like Dream tries to revive Fiddler's Greed, and he's like, if I came back, then what would be the point of my death? Like it's such a good line that he has. He's like, I lived. I don't need to come back. So good. I really liked it. And you have a couple panels of, or some of these people were his lovers, right? Like Titania, the queen, wasn't she one of his lovers at one point?
I think
thought-
at one point.
Okay. I mean, it's not really important. It's just something I was thinking of when I was reading this. And
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they mentioned it in passing
okay.
in a past issue. Maybe the Midsummer Nights.
Shakespeare, yeah.
Yeah.
The first Shakespeare issue.
Okay. And then you have a quick panel of Bast. You have Duma showing up to the dreaming, and then
Fucking Duma. Duma's the one that doesn't talk, right?
yes, pretty sure.
Yeah.
And I like the last page you see of the first issue is all the people going to the dreaming and seeing like giant ghostly versions of the Endless up in the sky.
Yeah.
It's badass.
And you also got Chiron showing up, the medical centaur.
Yeah.
Was he in other stuff?
He was in the
World's End?
World's End.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in the public house there.
Okay, now that brings us to chapter 2 of this. This is where I have some questions for you guys. The first panel, you see a couple people. Who is the woman that's like bleeding tears? That's someone I should know.
Well, I don't know if that's bleeding tears. I think that's just
I don't know who that is.
crying with mascara.
No,
Okay.
because she says she is bleeding.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is,
About
though.
Okay. And then do you guys know who the butt-looking face thing is next to her?
I gotta wonder
Is
if
it
that's
supposed to be R's face?
That's what I was wondering. If it's Art's face from Preacher.
It's all Preacher's Vertigo, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it already would have been out by this point, because this is like the 1995.
So this
Yeah,
just may
this
be
is
a lot
95.
of Vertigo people.
I've never read Preacher.
And there's a few, I mean, we already mentioned that Batman has a cameo. There's a few cameos in here. There's one that I don't think shows up on any of the wikis or anything, where I was like, I know whose shoulder pads those are at the wake.
I'm not sure who you are referring to, but
I
I'm
think
curious.
it's in this issue. Let me make sure, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay, but yeah, that could be Art's face. I kind of know what you're talking about because I've seen some stuff of Preacher, but I've always been curious to read Preacher. I've actually been curious to do it on the show, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Preacher's pretty good. I like Preacher.
Remember it in the 90s, I had a friend that was talking about it once, and that's how I knew it existed.
It's one of those comics that your edgelord friends loved,
Okay.
Yeah.
but it also had some good stuff in there.
I've heard the show is actually better in some ways than the comic, because it's like
It is.
I don't know if it's as much like The Boys, where it's just like it's too edgelordy. The actual comic, and the show is actually smarter and better. 72 is the cameo that we'll get to, as far as and you see more than just the shoulders. It's pretty clear who it is.
Okay, you have to point it out when we get there. But then you have I do like how you have the small part where Cain is about to kill Abel and Lucien's like, not today. I thought that was good.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the stuff with Calliope talking about Sandman and how they were lovers and how like I thought this was really good. And also like I was thinking that this could relate to so many, again, that's what it's supposed to be, like so many people and how relationships work. Just like these 2 pages of her talking just kind of sums it up. They had a child together, things were less important, he was too busy, and she lost interest. And he lost interest. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's life, man.
Yeah, and it's just the fact that I also know someone that's going through that, not me, but a friend of mine. And it was like, and I was reading this like, oh yeah, that's not far off. Life happens.
I do love the way that the art depicts Matthew in both the last issue and this issue in 70 and 71, where he's so expressive, like that his just like turning his head from side to side is like, oh, this is such a good like bird pose. And then he gets mad at Merv. I'm like, this is such great Raven acting. Where it's just like this, it's so expressive. I love the art here.
And we did blow right past something important,
Sure, no, please.
I think, when we're talking about Cain killing Abel yet again. Eblis O'Shaughnessy asks who they're mourning, and Cain just blurts out a point of view. And the first time I read that, I had to stop and think about that for a while. And I was like, oh, shit. I mean, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it, like, all gods, all religious figures, gods, mythologies are points of view. Because there are trickster gods in almost every culture.
Yeah.
There's, all gods are basically repeated throughout history.
Yeah.
So
Because
maybe,
God give man hope. They give man something to work toward. They give something to use to control man.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But
And also
in
just
purest
interesting
form.
stories to tell.
Yes, that's it. Well, at one time, now I feel like it's used more.
Yeah. No, I'm just talking about, back 1,000 years ago when you don't have power. You don't have internet. So once the sun sets, you have nothing to do for 12 hours.
Yeah, you just watch shadow plays on the wall of the cave.
Exactly.
Yes. And wait and hope an animal don't come in and try to kill you. That's cool. I didn't think about that, but okay, that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Ken. There's a couple. Let's see here. I do like when Matthew's talking to Merv and he gets upset about the drunken pumpkin. I thought that was funny. He makes a comment. He's like, that he was just smashed. I thought that was funny. And then is this when he talks to Endless or talks to Sandman and just tells him how no, and that's later. So there, have this.
Actually, this is pretty close to when.
Yeah.
When he says that I wasn't your raven, I was his raven, he's like, you're still my, and this is when he says, why was Carithian, this is when he said he saved him, that Carithian was supposed to kill him, but he stopped him.
Mm-hmm.
Why was Carithian supposed to kill him?
I don't know if supposed to, but he wanted to.
Oh, okay. That's
Corinthian's just the Corinthian.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Wanting to, I'll take. I'll accept that better. Okay.
But this is where you kind of get that weird overlap between Morpheus and Daniel, because Daniel knows who Matthew is, and he tells Matthew that he was his friend, and Matthew is being kind of shitty.
Yeah, he is.
But Daniel's worried because he's going to meet his brother and sisters for the first time. And that's weird because he knows he has them. He knows who they are, but he's meeting them for the first time.
It's a really cool idea, but it also fits like what Chris said, like a god. The god just changed. Still, that's just
right.
It kind of fits that whole idea that the stories go on. It's a different character, but it's the same character. It's
Yeah, and then we get Mad Hetty again.
Okay, I didn't know who she was.
Yeah, she was talking to what was it, Joanna Constantine?
Oh
Yes.
God, that's a long time ago then, huh?
Because she was a Hellblazer character first, I think.
Yeah, and then she showed up here.
Also, like hundreds of years old or whatever.
Yeah. But it was it's either Preludes and Nocturnes or Dollhouse. It was early.
Yeah, that is early. I want to say that's Preludes.
Yeah.
I actually want to read Preludes again, but that's neither here nor there. Okay. And then I do like the part where you have the stupid fairy guy who ends up meeting his nemesis. He's like, hey, you look just like me. And he's like, well, just help me. He puts the horns on. I do like that. And he's like, are you going to kill me? He's like, no, I wouldn't kill you at a wake. What kind of manners would that be? I'll kill you later.
Yeah. I just wanted to ruin both yours and your sister's life. See ya.
Yeah. Bye, y'all.
It's a good little moment.
And you know what? If I was somebody's nemesis, I'd do the same. I'd just show up randomly and be like, hey, remember me? Still gonna die, buddy.
So I have a couple questions. Well, one, you just have a small part with the Griffin where instead of resurrecting the Griffin, he brought a new Griffin that's all excited to be working for him. Did we ever get introduced to Rose's brother before? The guy that looks like Shaky?
Yeah. He was in Dollhouse.
Oh, looks at my calendar 4 years ago, I think.
Yeah. But 4
years.
That was the one that was kidnapped, right?
Was it him? I don't remember.
I mean, I could turn to my right and grab the volume and start, but I'm not going to.
I'm pretty sure that was Rose's brother that was kidnapped.
I think he's right. I'm 95% sure you're right from a very vague memory. He's grabbing the book, isn't he? Okay. I was just wondering, because, Rose says she's pregnant because she's talking to Lyta Hall. Because she's like, hey, whatever happened to your friend? Her friend got a little crispy. This is when, let me see what else happens here. Oh, and then you have a good, 2 pages worth of, what is her name? The Moon Lady.
Thessaly.
Yes. I like seeing her, and I like, again, another thing about love and relationships, where she just talks about how, she loved him because she felt his love, but she wasn't really in love with him. She just was enjoying the love and attention he was giving her until he had her, and then he stopped giving it to her. It was good. It's a good little, just another little thing here. I really liked it.
But again,
I really like
I will say, fucking Thessaly.
She's kind of the worst.
And here's a few cameos, like you guys were talking about, which will never be in anything else that's adapted from this.
Oh, no, of course not.
I like how you have Clark Kent, Batman, and Martian Manhunter just standing there. Yeah. I mean, they never say who they are, but you know who all 3 of these people are.
Yeah. I do love that it's Clark Kent, too.
Same.
That's who Superman thinks of himself as. And Bruce Wayne shows up as Batman because that's who he thinks he himself as. This is like perfect argument fodder for everybody who's like, oh, Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Right.
Batman's the real person. Like, this doesn't help that argument.
This doesn't help. It's such a good little panel, like just a small there. It's just there, but it's so good.
Yeah, right below it, you got Johnny Boy. Yeah.
John Constantine.
Yeah.
My guy.
And I think the Phantom Stranger is one of those guys. I think he's the third guy in that.
Yes.
Three of them in trench coats. But yeah, I do like the joke too, where Clark's like, yeah, I always had these dreams where like I'm an actor who's playing me in a movie, and Batman's like, doesn't everyone? And Martian Manhunter's like, I don't.
It's Dr. Occult and Phantom Stranger are those two other people in that panel.
Yeah, I figured I recognized Phantom Stranger. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's him.
I don't know who either of those characters are.
He's a stranger. That's the important thing to remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's just DC has a bunch of like mysterious characters who sort of help, but not really.
Okay, I know John Constantine, but that's it.
Yeah. I mean, he helps more than Phantom Stranger. He's more of just he's closer to the Watcher, honestly, in terms of like he'll help, but mostly he just is just sitting there when important things are happening.
And then just when you first see the family and Death is wearing all red. I think so Matthew comments about that. Like, yeah, she's like, I'm not wearing black. It's a funeral or a wake, so I'm wearing red.
I mean, it is a special occasion.
And then that brings us to chapter 3. I'm glad they kept the art through this whole wake thing, that they didn't change the art on me.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that they knew they were getting to this point because I feel like the Kindly Ones is really long. So it's like they hopefully were like, hey, I need you to draw these issues.
I'm pretty sure Kindly Ones is the longest volume of the series.
Yeah. I mean, it probably would have been, like 9 months in real time of just the Kindly Ones storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was longer. That was like 13 issues.
Was it that long? I know it's
13 issues.
It was a long boy.
Yeah.
That would have been over a year.
Yep.
Man, could you imagine having to live with that art for a year, Mike?
I probably wouldn't have bought the books. So.
You would have.
I don't know. I never really bought any ongoing comics. I don't really buy comics. When I do buy comics, I buy trades.
This by this point we're in 1995, so I'm like fully buying all like 6 different X-Men books by this point as a 10-year-old.
Were any good?
Yeah, they were all great. They were all 10 out of 10s. Uncanny X-Men, X-Force, Generation X, Wolverine.
No.
Probably a couple more. I didn't read Excalibur that monthly. I would read the occasional issue.
I have the first issue of Excalibur just because it's the first appearance. I bought it for cheap at one point.
No.
Yeah, I don't know that Excalibur's worth a whole lot, unfortunately.
No, but I only paid $2 for it. So
the original, like the first appearance of Captain Britain, was like a Marvel UK Alan Moore book, so that's worth something. But Excalibur #1, they made a bunch of copies of it, and I don't think it's worth very much.
No, it is not. And then in this issue, this is when you see them put the shroud over with the mask on it, and then it just becomes his body. That was a really cool touch.
That was a cool touch, and I really hope the show stays around long enough to do this, because I want to see this in the show.
What's the chance it makes it that long?
Yeah, for Netflix, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Stranger Things got 5 seasons, and if they're sticking with 2 seasons or 2 volumes per season, roughly, maybe.
So, I mean, like, say that they have already shot 2 seasons. We're not going to know if it's renewed for probably a year anyway. It's going to be like a long time before we even know. So I don't know. I wouldn't hold your breath.
Well, season 2 is happening, thankfully.
Yeah, that's all right. Like I said, I know they've already filmed a bunch of that. But like I said, even if they've started filming season 3, which I don't know if they have or not. I know Netflix does it a little weird where they'll like split seasons to pay people less.
Yeah.
I mean, for creative reasons, to help people get the entertainment they love.
Of course. Of course.
I mean, I do like that they split the seasons now, because then it keeps it talked about longer. But if that's the reason why they do it, that's shitty.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
All corporations are gonna find the cheapest way to do something. That's what they're there for.
But yeah, so they start the Funeral Destiny speaks first. Gives kind of a normal Destiny speech, nothing that exciting.
No. And then I do like how Destruction shows up, but he doesn't actually go to the wake. He just comes to see and have a drink with the new Sandman.
Yeah.
I really like that. I thought that was really good. And he's like, I know who you are, but I don't know who you are at the same time.
Yeah.
You have Bass talking, and this is where I know who both these cameos were sitting there.
Okay. Then you don't know who they are.
Well, maybe not. The guy that I thought by Rose Walker was the Emperor of the United States. Is that who
Correct.
that is?
The Emperor, of San Francisco. Emperor Norton.
And then, of course, Darkseid.
Yeah, it's Darkseid.
But I feel like Darkseid wouldn't dream. Or if he...
No, I think he does.
I just think it's funny they just draw Darkseid in here. Like, oh, we're just going to put Darkseid in here.
Just sitting next to, Rose Walker and her brother.
And then it's Desire that gets up and talks. And, of course, Desire has a cigarette. I feel like that's very fitting.
Yep.
So wasn't Desire trying to have Morpheus killed? Like, wasn't Desire the one that orchestrated the whole thing that happened with his son?
Yes.
Okay.
Look, you can do things and be like, well, that sucks.
And I didn't catch this cameo, but after you have Despair talking, which is good, I did like that. That's supposed to be the old Sandman, I guess, as an old man. Is what the internet was telling me.
What? Where?
There's somebody that talks is the old Sandman. Maybe it's a different character.
Oh, the Hal whatever.
Yeah, I just know the Golden Age Sandman.
Oh, okay, Wesley, that guy. Yeah, I will say, I mean, so Desire, like, their speech is that, basically that family bonds are, they literally say the bonds of family bind both ways. They bind us, support us, help us, and they're also a bond from which it is difficult, perhaps impossible, to extricate oneself. Had we not been family, why then we could do nothing with each other, and both our lives would have been enriched. So it's literally saying that our lives would have been better if we weren't family. But, and again, that was my quote at the beginning, that families rock and suck. But that's kind of what Desire is saying, too, that it's just like, this was like the game of like, because they were family, I had to do this. But we both would have been happier if we weren't.
I mean, the idea that it wouldn't bring you pain because you wouldn't have loved that person.
Right.
I think that's kind of the idea of it.
Yeah,
but then Desire blows a smoke heart. So
it's just they can't help but be who they are. And it means, that they're going to antagonize Dream and, have their little games, which, we find out, I guess, later a little bit in the last issue as far as what all's going on with Dream. It's not just Desire, even though Desire was trying to set Dream up to kill Orpheus.
It's weird. And during the elegy, or during all these people talking, is elegy the right word I want here?
Eulogy.
You have Lucifer and the woman that had the mask on her face just sitting there. I thought that was cool. Is this bear supposed to be anybody? Or just a bear for some reason? I was just, okay. And then I see you have Odin, you have the Cuckoo Girl. I'm assuming that's who that is with the balloon. Wasn't that the Cuckoo Girl? Or was that somebody else?
I thought that was the Delirium, her, like, messenger or whatever. I don't know.
Okay. I was just curious. And then I'm assuming that other guy is another one of just the immortals that helped them get the car.
I think that was the guy who was sailing with Hob on that ship.
Oh.
The one other immortal that Hob met.
Wasn't there an immortal who got him the rent-a-car at one point? That wasn't Hob.
Yeah, that was when Delirium was road tripping with Dream, right? Or with whoever.
Yeah, with Morpheus.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have them, they get the boat, and then they put his body on a swan, and it's going down the river, and you just get a couple good panels, which I didn't catch this. Is that supposed to be the ghost of his son on the pier watching him his boat go off into the end? I'm assuming that's who that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's got the heart.
Okay. And then, this is when Daniel talks to Lyta. I do like this. He's like, I could trap you. Like, I could kill you, but you have been forgiven.
Yeah, this was very sweet.
It's a good little scene. I mean, he's like, now people can't hurt you. And then this is when you start having everybody wake up and you get to see who these different characters were. And it's really good. So I was reading I was reading a version of just the comic itself. And I swear there was a page in there that said that there was supposed to be more, but it wasn't done in time.
Yeah, that's some of the pages of the death stuff wasn't in the original issue.
Okay, but it's in the tray that I'm holding in my hands right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So I read this 2 different ways. I read it on my tablet, and then I also went and read my physical copy.
Just the like splash pages of like you see like Anubis and Bast and Odin and all those people as he's like going over in the swan boat and everything. Like that's the stuff that I think was originally not in the monthly book.
Okay, because they just from the sound of it, like they just didn't get it done in time.
And it happens.
I get it. Life happens. And I do like the.
I was gonna say I do think it's funny that Lyda wakes up and she's not in like a crack den or whatever. She appears to just be in like a normal place. I'm like, what happened here? I thought we were like fully in Crazy Town.
I mean, there's luggage, so you can tell, and she also makes comment how she's been on the run.
Yeah, but she appears to be in like like a motel or something, and not like I said in like a crack den, because she's been like out of reality. I guess she had been. Maybe she got better once everything had happened.
Once they were done, she'd be done being used. Right.
And we didn't really talk about it earlier, but you also get the turn where Matthew is like, nah, you're cool.
Yeah, and which I do like that the reason he does it is he comes in and sees him forgive his mother or, mother/killer or whatever. And he's like, that was a good thing to do. You're going to need some advice. You need a good advisor because you don't really know this stuff. So I'll be your rave.
And ravens don't grow on trees.
And the last page of this issue is Dream goes to the table and the rest of the family is sitting at the table. That's a really good little scene. I wanted more. I want that conversation that I don't get.
Yeah, it's a shame that we never get like the next scene. This is issue 72, and then you're like, oh, 3 more issues. Like, nope, we never know what happens here.
Well, and I don't know. I think it's almost the better for that. I think.
I agree because it would be this is the wrapping up the Sandman we've known, and I do feel like it would be the beginning. I'm very sick of it now in 2024, but like if you were being like the Sandman Volume 2 is like you could start with that scene because that is like a new beginning point of like Daniel meeting the rest of his family. Because from the very beginning, this has been Morpheus' story. It's called The Sandman, yes. Not The Endless. So, like, this was just him leaving the party. And now that he is truly gone and somebody's ready to take over as Dream, that's where the story ends. And I think it's a perfect place to end. Yeah, I think there's one, like, I appreciate that we have the next 3 issues, but I think it's 1 issue too many.
I agree.
We'll talk through
it. It's not like, the next issue feels good. Like this could have ended on the issue that's called an epilogue Sunday morning, morning and not morning. It could have ended right here, and I'd been okay with that. Yeah, this could have been the last issue, and I would have been perfectly happy because it wraps up. I mean, as he said, this is like it's the Sandman story, but this is sort of a postscript issue that's dealing with, one of the sort of breakout characters who we know there's not going to be like, again, you're never going to see Hobgoblin and Batman team up and solve mysteries. Like, they're not going to sell comics with Hobgoblin. This is the character that is still around, that's original creation from this series. So it is kind of the most pressing loose end. And this is his chance now that his longtime friend is gone. Death is like, you know what? Here's your out, buddy. If you want it. I love this issue because the whole thing is that it's Hob at a Renaissance fair with his current girlfriend complaining about, this isn't that accurate, guys. Like, this is how it used to be. And there's shit everywhere. It's so good. And like, as it progresses, he talks about the slavery and she's like, you shouldn't feel sorry for your ancestors. He's like, yeah, ancestors. But he just gets so angry with everybody, and he's just getting drunk. And that final scene when he goes into the random abandoned hut, and he's just drinking and drinking and drinking, and Death shows up, and I'm like, oh, that's what went through my head. I'm like, you ain't coming out of that cabin. But you're right, it's so well done, and I didn't expect her to say it's your choice. Do you want to come with me, or do you want to stay? I thought it was like, it's your time, buddy. Sandman's dead. Your immunity's gone. Let's go.
I don't think it can work like that, though, because the immortality was a gift.
Yeah.
From Morpheus, and you don't take back a gift. That's poor taste, and I can't see Death doing that.
I just thought that where it was going, but also like the way that you see him appreciate his girlfriend after that, I also thought was really well done. I really, really like this issue.
Yeah, it's a great issue. I love when he is because he's just kind of being a spoil sport, but he's also because subconsciously, at least, he's remembering that Morpheus died. And then when Death shows up and is like, it's like, you don't remember any of this. This was all years ago. And she's like, I remember Hob. And he's just like, oh, okay. You're like another one of these people, huh? It's so good. It's such a great, like the shoe dropping where you're just like, oh, okay. I'm dealing with something way outside of my, level of understanding.
I just really liked it. My character really grew on me too. Because you never get too much of him. You get just enough of him throughout the Sandman books.
Yeah.
They didn't overdo it, which was nice.
Yeah, it's very fun, and it's also it's just fun. I recommend everybody check out. There's I think it's just called Ren Fair or something like that on Max. Check that show out. Documentary about the Texas Renaissance Festival, because it is like such a weird thing, but and I think this comic does a good job of there's yes, it is. You can look at it and just be like, this is just a way to overcharge people on beers, and it's not like the real Renaissance or whatever.
But we wouldn't want the real Renaissance.
It's also just shut up. It's fine.
Just enjoy. I love going. I go to a Minnesota Ren Fest usually almost every year. And sure, I'll pay more than I want to pay to get in, and I'll pay more for my bread bowl with soup in it, and my mead that I'll drink. But it's fun. I still enjoy myself.
It's fun, yeah. There's not a lot of places that you can go where you can, kind of have that effect. I do miss back, because even 15 years ago, because the Texas Renaissance Festival is way out in the woods, you wouldn't have cell phone service, but now everyone has service everywhere. So it's a little bit of a drag that now everyone just has their phones out the second any show starts or anything's happening. But yeah, it's fun. Yes, we understand that the real Renaissance would not be this fun, and that bad things would happen. But it's that's not the point of it.
Yeah, if it was real, there should be people dying in the gutter. But where's the fun?
So it was very fun. And I like his girlfriend a lot. She's very sweet, and I love that whenever she's like, you haven't dated a lot of black women, have you? And he's like, no. It's yeah, because they would not put up with this. Apologizing for your ancestors or whatever.
It was good. It
seems like he's doing. We know that that's not actually what he's doing, but it seems like he's just being really overprotective or whatever. It's just I'm sorry that 300 years ago someone with my name did this.
Yeah, literally me, but
Yeah, we actually know it's him directly apologizing for what he did.
It's just a very good wrap up of his story.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's very sweet. I kind of wish it was the last issue.
Same. I don't care for the next issue, Exiles. I don't care for it all. It's very different. The art is different. It doesn't read or feel like a regular comic book. I mean, it does have panels, but it just feels more like a book than a comic book, which is fine. I just didn't care for it.
I just feel like bringing this to us now is a little too late. If this was, something during the World's End storyline, I would be fine. I don't really understand everything that's going on with this new dream. But
wait, this isn't Morpheus that's in the desert that this guy runs into?
The first time.
The first time it is. The second time it's Daniel.
Oh, okay. I see. He even has the green pendant. Okay.
Yeah.
The idea is this some Chinese philosopher is just wandering the desert because he was told to leave his emperor and
he's exiled because of the crimes of someone else, and he has to go off, and ends up basically on the edge of this sort of dream where time is kind of loosey-goosey.
Okay, and that's why he meets one dream, and then he meets the other dream, because he's just stuck in the weird land. Ken, do you have any thoughts on this book?
I mean, it's not bad. I kind of get what they're going for here, but I don't know if it was really necessary. This would have been something good to throw in Endless Nights.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that, because even if we wouldn't have understood it, it would fit better if it was from an arc or two ago.
Yes.
But like here at the end of things, kinda.
Okay, it just seemed odd to me. I didn't realize. I mean, I read it once. I didn't get the chance to read it a second time, so it didn't leave a lasting effect on me. I do like that he has a little kitten that's leading him through the desert. I thought that was cute, but I was like, whatever.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, it's kind of hopeful. It's kind of hopeful, and really, like the last page is really all you need.
What's the last page?
I am banished to the gray waste at the end of the world, but I mourn myself no longer. I cherish the pain in my hand. I imagine the taste of mulberries in the violet dusk, and tomorrow I shall arrive in the town of Way. Only the phoenix arises and does not descend, and everything changes, and nothing is truly lost.
All right.
Like, that would have been fine.
Yeah. I think it's a sweet issue, but I also am just like, where it is, I'm kind of like, okay. I'm kind of like skipping, like, come on, where are we going with this?
So I read this next issue last night for the first time, which is The Tempest. To me, this is a strange ending to the book.
Yeah, I kind of wish it had ended with the Hop issue. If I were the editor for DC,
Same.
I'd be like, I would switch these around, and I would have this be 73 and that be 75.
Yeah.
Because it's a more like satisfying conclusion to everything. And yeah, we don't actually even see Morpheus at all in the Hobb story, but he's dead. So like, why would we expect to?
But the Tempest story, this is, because maybe this is one that people talk about too. Because before I ever read Sandman, I heard a lot of people talk about Shakespeare and Sandman, and it's just one and a bunch of other stuff that we've already talked about on the show. And like, to me, to finally be able to experience it has been really something. But I'm wondering if this is the issue that other people talk about when they talk about the Shakespeare, because it wasn't just the Midsummer's Night Dream.
Yeah, this is the second. I mean, this is kind of the sequel to that issue. But I think that issue won a bunch of awards. That's the one everyone loves.
Yeah, this one. So this is Shakespeare, but he's older. His son is dead. He's writing the last play he's going to work on, and he just looks very sad and depressing, and the whole thing is just odd.
It's the end of a story, though. It's the end of Shakespeare's story. Like he's got things that he has going on in his life. And this is his ode to Morpheus, pretty much.
Because he owed Morpheus 2 plays, and he wrote the other play, and then he hasn't wrote another one, I guess, or something. Okay. I mean, I'm assuming this is also a real play, correct? That they're talking about?
Yes.
This is Shakespeare's the last play credited to him, The Tempest.
Okay.
Not one of my favorites, anyway.
I don't care.
To me, that's like the real, the real heads, I guess. Some of them really like The Tempest, and I've heard there's been really good productions of it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a very like light and sort of like there's just not a lot to it play. But it's like a magician on an island, and he's got a monster man servant, Caliban, and I don't know. It's not for everybody, but it's I guess the second of the plays he tells, and we get kind of the context for where he's getting the ideas for it. This to me is, I think, Neil Gaiman at his worst. Some of this stuff I'm just like, this stinks. Like they do the remember the 5th of November.
The Guy Fawkes thing.
Yeah, I'm like, this sucks. Get out of here.
And that's another freaking
thing,
right?
Yeah, that's Alan Moore, in V for Vendetta brings, it's an English thing anyway. But to like credit it to Shakespeare, I'm like, that's to me Gaiman at his worst of like, and he does fall into this trap a lot. He loves the like, oh, these are like exceptional people who are like, so creative or whatever. And now he does say it's because Dream like chose him or whatever to make him do these things and have like a muse basically. But I'm still just like, that's stupid. I don't like that at all.
But it's kind of interesting to go back and see Morpheus as he was.
Yeah, it's always fun to see that. I just don't like the way that this is setting up. Like Shakespeare is sort of the the man on the street who's all these things are happening to, and then he works them into his plays. And it becomes this thing of like, I don't know. That's to me, like I said, the least interesting thing of like, how did this 19th century write or know all of this. It's like, oh, she must have personally experienced all of it. Otherwise, how could you? And it's like, no, writing is a creative exercise. You don't have to actually know these things. So it's annoying to me, and it becomes, as Gaiman continues to write, one of the most annoying things he does is just and that's the origin of that, sort of it makes the reader feel smart if they don't know what he's doing, because they're like, oh, I know what that is. And again, he's done it plenty in Sandman, but I think he's done it in a more clever way. Here, I'm just like, I don't like this at all. It gets too close to his Eternals Marvel comic, which I hated.
I also didn't like all the cursive because I just don't like reading cursive. So whenever they would have the cursive stuff, I wouldn't read it. I'd just skip over it. I'm like, that's nice. Keep going.
Yeah, the actual dialogue from The Tempest. I don't know
It's
why
just too
they
much.
decided to write it in cursive.
I hate his writing. I don't like Shakespeare's writing either. So I'm like, I don't want to read this crap.
It's interesting too, because again, it just gets too close to, and again, I know I'm just shitting on this issue. It gets too close to, because Shakespeare is saying I, in a way, regret that I chose this life of being a writer, because it meant that even when I was experiencing hardship in my life, I was like, oh, I could use this in my writing. And it's just to me, it's becomes this sort of obvious self-reference thing, where it's the writer of the comic is oh, I'm kind of like Shakespeare in a way. Because it's Shakespeare is literally, he's between panels going back and forth between Prospero, where it'll just go to him reciting a line, and then it's, the character in the play. And he's just yeah, I put a lot of myself in this character, and, now I'm this old man. And again, it's just, to me, it's annoying to do this. It crosses a line from kind of cute to just okay, nobody really wants to hear a writer talk about how writing is that hard.
That's fair.
But writing is kind of hard, though.
It is.
It is, but it's just nobody wants to. I don't want to read a book about how hard living as a writer is. Sorry, Stephen King, and 10 books you did about this.
I mean, that's completely true. That's why I didn't become a writer. I actually wanted to be, and I remember I was actually trying to write a novel and trying to get short stories published, and I'm like, I need money, and then I stop writing.
But it's it's interesting, I guess, but it's just to me, there's nothing less interesting where I'm just oh yeah, the writer sees himself in this character. And it's one thing if you can sort of be I wonder if the writer knows about this, but when the writer makes it very clear they do. I do love whenever Dream shows up, we do get to see Merv Pumpkinhead's ancestor, because pumpkin's not a English native plant. And so we have a turnip man. That was pretty great.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the turnip man, but I was wondering why do we have a random turnip man? But okay, that makes sense. Cool.
That actually
Shakespeare wouldn't know what a pumpkin is.
Yeah. And they used to carve turnips for Hallows Eve back in the day.
Oh, your fun fact brought to you by GMMF.
If you've never seen a carved turnip, it's horrifying.
That kind of fits Hallows Eve too. So
yeah.
I just didn't care for this book because it felt too long. This is a 30-page story where the rest are 20. And I was reading this last night. I'm like, does this fucking end? I'm just tired. I want to go to bed.
Yeah, I don't know why this would be, because again, the wake is, I think, a little longer than normal, or maybe it's just the pages they added. But it's just why is Shakespeare just, again, I do like it reminds me of, because I'm a Luddite who only experiences the world through video games. It reminds me of the Wind Waker whenever Shakespeare goes and he's just oh, have a drink with me. And he goes into what appears to be a church, and there's stained glass windows of the Endless. And it reminds me of the Wind Waker, where there's the stained glass windows of all the sages.
I like that comparison. I'll take it.
They're all just so stylized, but we're well, we know who all these people are.
And I take it the very last part when it's talking about Shakespeare, and it says he died on this day, and his daughter married on this day. It wasn't a good marriage. Is probably taken from the real life people.
Yes, that's all. And it's a sweet moment because he asks what would my life be if you didn't inspire me? And he's you would have quit. You would have stopped writing plays, and you would have made some money and been successful, but you also would have been deeply unhappy doing it. But which is it's a very, his dream is not sparing his feelings. It's just oh, yeah, that would have sucked. I would have hated that. And then, but he's like, but he still has to know. He's like, but would my son have lived or died? And then he's like, no, wait, I don't want to know that.
Yeah, that's a question you don't want to ask.
Yeah, that's I like that moment. Again, I don't like this issue, but that's a very good moment.
I think it's just a hard issue to end with because, like, you're taking for such highs with the wake, and then the morning kind of brings you down in a good way, and then it's just like it just feels too much. And I wonder if this was an editorial thing or like we got to publish 2 more books, guys, like or something of that nature.
I don't know. I feel like, and I can't speak for the Vertigo editorial, but it's like I feel like they gave Gaiman a lot of runway where if they're like, hey, if you want to do this, if you want to have a clip show issue where it's just like all of our favorite moments, whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like this was his choice to do this again. I think it's a little congratulatory and not his best. But and also, again, because 74, we do see a little bit now. We see the original Morpheus. We see Daniel too. This issue, it's just Morpheus, no Daniel at all. So
no, that's why it feels weird to be there too.
Well, like it might make you feel a little better to know that this was supposed to come much earlier initially. Like Gaiman wanted to put this a while before this,
and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, he probably should have. But again, like I think that's giving DC editorial saying like, okay, we're not going to skip a month or whatever. We're just going to like put this out whenever it's ready. It's just, I don't know. I think it's a frustrating last issue because I don't think it's very good.
No, it's not as good as the other highs that we just got done having. So it's kind of a letdown.
It's kind of the worst issue in this trade, which is such a weird way to end it. Like the Wake is so good, and the Hob issue kind of has to go after it because he's remembering. He's like, oh, I was there. I wasn't sure if it really happened, but I guess it. He really is dead. Like that should be the last issue, I think.
You could have had this at the beginning of the book, The Tempest, and well, no, you could. Oh, you already killed. Yeah, this should have been published like World's End or somewhere else, not here.
Yeah.
Not Kindly Ones and not here.
I think before Kindly Ones would have been a better place for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same.
Because if it was placed before Kindly Ones, looking back, you've been like, oh, maybe that was some kind of a sign, a portent of what was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and there is a little bit of that. He does. I mean, there is, and it's similar to 74 with which everything changes or whatever the actual line was, where it's just like that's kind of we are seeing that Dream knows that he's like, I can't do what Destruction did. I can't break my staff. I can't just give up this power. Really, the only thing I can do is this kind of change, which is not something he thinks he can do. But, as we've seen through the course of the book, he does change. So it's like, it is possible. But it was what, change or die? Is that everything changes, nothing is truly lost. So that's, he is saying in the 75 is kind of the coda to that of like, I am going to have to change because he can't do what, Prospero does and what Shakespeare does and say like, I quit. I'm just going to stop writing.
I think that's completely fair.
And we're recording this over the 4th of July if people can hear the constant stream.
There wasn't anything till just now. It's just kind of like, oh, you guys are almost done. Time to light the firework.
Well, they're celebrating us finishing this episode round 2.
Hey, I'll take it. Ken, you have anything you want to say about The Tempest?
Those are right outside my window. No, I mean, like, I've already said some stuff about it, but, regardless of what we thought, and, Gaiman wanted to put it earlier, but didn't, like, he thought it was a fitting end to the series, and we can disagree. I also agree that it should have ended with the Hobgoblin story. Like, that would have been perfect. But, whatever. It is what it is. Like, It's done. And 75 is a nice round number to end on.
For sure.
That is also fair. I feel like that is why we get what we get, so. Because they wanted to end it on a nice round number.
Yeah. So, don't be sad that it's over, everybody. Be glad that it happened.
That is a very, very fair statement. And that is how I feel about this, too.
Like, overall, is it a perfect ending? No, but it is an ending. And sometimes endings just are like that. They don't end the way you wanted them to. They don't end in the perfect way. Sometimes things are just over. And maybe that's the message.
Oh.
You know?
I will say the last three issues, the first three issues of this arc are some of the most like touching, where like multiple times I was just like, this is just, we've been with these characters, these characters sort of being emotionally vulnerable in a way that it feels like you can only really be at a funeral. Maybe it's because I was at a funeral last week, but it really got to me, where I was just like, yeah, this is very true to this. It's a celebration of this very strange character's life and all these people who were affected by him, kind of saying like, yeah, he was a good person in some ways, but he could be just the same way all of the Endless can be. Like, he could be difficult, but it's just, that they all, came to love him, or will miss him at the very least now that he's gone. All of that, I was like, it's so touching. It's so rare, like the death of Superman had already happened by this point. And I do think the death of Superman is a very well done, like that kind of story. But this is a little different because there's like, these are all Sandman characters. These aren't just like, oh, this is, other, DC characters paying their respects. Like, this is just characters that we know because we've seen, Duma from the Lucifer, Hell storyline. We've seen Delirium. We've seen all of these characters. And so them coming together to mourn, Dream, where, I think it's very affecting. And I do think it's a little bit of a shame that then the next three issues are just okay. Or I'll say the Hobgoblin issue is great. The last two issues are just okay.
I think that's fair. Did you want somebody to go to say, I can safely say that to know him was to love him, and to love him was to know him. Those who knew him loved him, while those who did not know him loved him from afar. That's what I thought of. I had to look up that speech from the Schizoid Man of Star Trek Next Gen.
Yeah, and I love Matthew's, his eulogy for his friend, and he's just like, like sometimes he was a real asshole to me and acted like I was an idiot, but sometimes I feel like I was a friend to him, and that's, I'm gonna miss him. And it's just like, but you can't kill dreams. I feel a little bit of regret, but it's just like, I still have the memory of the coolest, strangest, most infuriating boss friend I ever had. It's very touching. Like, Matthew is so, I feel like he's in a way the voice of the reader, where it's just like, we've been very annoyed sometimes by Dream because the number of times when he's just so imperious and is just like, oh, I have to, honor the customs of my realm or whatever. And you're like, you could just be normal. You could just tell people how you feel about them. And he's just like, no, I can't do that. So it's just like, he could be very infuriating as a character. And I feel like Matthew really captured that.
I'll agree with that. I really liked him in this. I'm definitely curious to see the Swamp Thing that he's in, the Alan Moore stuff.
Oh, when Matthew first, he's barely recognized.
I figured.
He's dealing with some pretty hardcore alcoholism, and then he gets horrible things happen to him.
I really want to read those volumes of Alan Moore someday.
Coming soon?
Probably, yes. There's this. It's either that we'll do next, or we'll probably do both of them, and the Batman thing, the Nightfall we talked about.
Oh, boy.
Hey, you're one that want to do No Man's Land.
I wanted to do No Man's Land because I'm insane.
Get me Nightfall, we do No Man's Land. Simple as that. Because I got a Nightfall, and then I would gladly do 6 volumes of me, you, and Joe can sit there and complain about 6 volumes of Batman.
A lot of Batman.
I volunteered Joe, and he won't know that until he listens to this someday. If he does.
And he might never listen to this episode.
No.
So.
No, he'll find out when I tell him.
I will say, though, like, as kind of a final thing, reading this book always gets me in a headspace. Like, I start thinking about mortality. And, I'm not getting any younger. What's my weight going to look like? And this time I think I finally got the definitive answer. Because if none of y'all talk shit about me after I'm gone, you didn't know me. So, like, I want a wake where people realize it's okay to say that I'm flawed. I want a Matthew at my funeral. And having a friend that's good enough to say who you really were at the end of things, that's probably the best thing we could ask for in life.
All right. I'm sure there were people who would say I'm an asshole. I don't know. I don't think you're an asshole.
I'm loved by all.
All right. I think we should go to shelf stacker box, and I'll go first. So, like, this was my first time reading this entire saga, or any of this saga, and I can't believe how much this book means to me now to have finally experienced it over the course of 5 years. And, like, just what it was. And, like, now I think about dreams so much more when I have a dream. Like, it isn't just like, oh, I had a dream. Okay, cool. I'm back to life. Like, I think about it now because of this damn book. And this was never even meant to be the whole run. I did the first one because one of my original co-hosts wanted to. Like, okay, fine, we'll do the first one, whatever. And then I'm like, I need something to do. Okay, we'll do the second one. And then it just kept going. And Chris, you joined us because Vince's like, oh yeah, Chris, he likes those. He's like, have him read them for you so he won't make me read them on our podcast. So, I mean, and that's how Chris joined us. I mean, Ken, I think one of the first episodes you did with us that actually got published, was it Dollhouse, one of the early ones?
I think so, yeah.
Because the first Court of Owls thing didn't get published till we redid it later. So yeah, like it just, I never knew it was to become this. It was like, okay, I'll do a couple, and then it just blossomed out over the course of years, and it's a hell of a journey, and it's the only trades that I own. I own all 10 and two of the 3 other volumes I want of Sandman. Like, that's how much this book meant to me that I bought the whole thing physical. I do not buy comics. I buy single issues. I don't buy trades. So going on the shelf, and I'm so glad to finally have read this and understand Sandman, to finally have experienced it. And Chris.
Yeah, I mean, this is easily on the shelf. I know I was a little bit critical of the last couple of issues, but this is really a very fitting end to the series. I think it ties up so much so well that, again, the fact that the last 2 issues I think get a little too self-indulgent are something that we can look past because it's just so good. Especially, like I said, the 3 issues of the Wake itself, and then the Hobgoblin issue is just, it's amazing. Like, that's one of my favorite issues. So yeah, easily a book to put on the shelf.
All right, and Ken.
I don't think it would surprise anybody to say that I'm putting this on the shelf. Absolutely putting this on the shelf. And, you know, what you said earlier, it's interesting, Mike, because the story of Sandman has become the story of games my mom found. From episode 1 to episode 10, there have been a lot of changes, and the show's the same, but it's not the same.
That is fair.
So, like, Sandman, it really is just this. It's the story of a life. At the end of the day, you're never the same person as you were at the beginning as you are at the end. And I don't know what's more timeless than that. So, yeah, no, absolutely shelf. This is, It's a story for the ages.
That is for sure. I will completely agree with that. And it's a hell of a story. But yeah, I didn't really think about that, but you are right. It does really set the saga of the game by Mom Pop. You know, where it was in 2019, and it wasn't until 2021 when the next one got done, and 2022 before we did 2 more. Like, it's been a slow thing that finally wrapped up. Okay.
Well, that's the last podcast episode ever.
Hey, the funny thing is, in the comics at one point, we're only supposed to go 50 episodes, and the last one was going to be Nightfall, and that was it. That was the original plan. Not my plan. That was the original plan. We passed that up. It's getting close to 75. At the time you're hearing this, it's very close. So I think this will be 73 or 72. One of those. I don't know. But somewhere around there. Math hard. So yeah. And Chris, where can you find you at?
You can find me at one of my various podcasts. Some of my friends read comics, where we've been doing a slow read of Thunderbolts, and just recently read some more into The Death of Captain America from the early 2000s with Steve Epting and Ed Brubaker. We're at the point where Captain America has already died, and Bucky the Winter Soldier is taking over as Captain America. And you can also find me on Your Stupid Minds, where we've just covered some anime and comics related projects as well. We did the notoriously bad dubbed Garzy's Wing from the late 90s anime, and then we did Gen 13, the that it has a interesting history and that it was never released in America, and we explain why in Your Stupid Minds.
All right. And if you enjoyed this episode and you want to hear the rest of our Sandman, I mean, I'm assuming you probably are. You didn't just start here, but it is all in the show notes if you want to find it all there. We have over 650 other episodes of this podcast. We do movies, comics, TV shows, games. Go check out our giant catalog. You want to support the show? We do have a Patreon for Little Dog Vote. We have Patreon polls every month, 1 to 2. And at the time that you're hearing this, we are about to go full Spooktober, so there will be a lot of creepy stuff that I'm going to be forced to cover. So definitely go check that out for a little bit. Support the show. We have a Discord. Please join our Discord. Free. We're always happy to have new people join us and chat with us. And want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro courtesy of Helena at Hell Haster. You can follow her on TikTok, Twitch, and Instagram. You will see a link to her link tree in the show notes. Definitely go check her out. Give a shout out to Bill Tucker with the Gamer Looks at 40. He's been on the show many times. Definitely go support his podcast. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, squirrel videos, and YouTube, audio only. We can be found on all those different things. I think that's everything I need to say, so we will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
So long.
Bye.